Hey, howdy, hey, welcome back to another All About That Disney Life. I am Danny B, the girl who is all about that Disney life. We move on now to the next movie on my list, Bambi, which came out in 1942. This movie is sad and happy at the same time, gives you mixed feelings, mixed emotions, but is still a beloved Disney classic to this day. And let's get to know this cast who made this movie possible. We had Donnie Dunagan, who played young Bambi, and Hardy Albright, who was adult Bambi. We had Peter Bain, who played young Thumper the rabbit, and then we had Sam Edwards, who was adult Thumper. We had Stan Alexander, who played baby Flower, and then Sterling Holloway, who played adult Flower. We had Paula Winslow, who was Bambi's mom and a pheasant. We had Will Wright, who was Friend Owl. Cammie King, who played baby Feline, and then we had Ann Gillis, who played adult Feline. We had Fred Shields, who played the Great Prince. That's also Bambi's father. We had Margaret Lee, who played Mrs. Rabbit, Thumper's mom. We had Pierce, I hope I'm saying that right, who played Mr. Mole. We had Thelma Boardman, who played a girl bunny, a quail mother, and another female pheasant. We had Marion Darlington, who were the birds in the movie. We had Eddie Holden, who was a chipmunk. Mary Langsing, who played Mrs. Possum, and we had Clarence Nash, who played Bullfrog. Now we get on to the facts and trivia all about this amazing, cute little deer. Number 1, Bambi was based on a book. Once again, we have another film based on a book. This book was originally called Bambi, A Life in the Woods, and it was written by Austrian author Felix Saltine, but that was his author name. His real name is Sigmund Salzman. This man was once an insurance clerk who wrote Bambi just out of boredom. And he got the idea while he was traveling to Italy, and he was fascinated with the word bambino, which means baby. Number 2, the original story is a dark one. Mr. Salton wrote this book for adults. It was not intended for children whatsoever. And in the original story, Bambi's dad shows Bambi a dead human being to show Bambi that humans were not immortal. Like animals, humans die. They don't live forever. Number 3, the author barely made any money from this production. Felix sold the American film rights to his book to Sidney Franklin in 1933 for $1,000. Franklin then sold the film rights to Disney because he couldn't make his idea for the movie, his version, work. Franklin wanted to do a live-action version of Bambi using real-life animals and voiceover actors. But the technology at the time wasn't really working for Mr. Franklin, so he then was going to scrap the idea. But then when Mr. Franklin saw Disney's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and knew how successful it was, he then said, okay, let's see what Disney can do with this. And Franklin got credits in the Bambi movie, and it said, to Sidney A. Franklin, our sincere appreciation for the inspiring collaboration. Number 4, the animators studied real-life animals. The animators visited the Los Angeles Zoo to get an idea of what they could draw, and Disney also set up a tiny zoo at the studios. It had rabbits and ducks and owls and skunks, and they also brought in a pair of baby deer, ironically named Bambi and Feline. Number 5, there is a lot of detailed animation when it comes to Bambi. That is true. The artist had to duplicate Bambi's spots in every single frame. Can you imagine having to sit there for hours and drawing the spots so meticulously, so on point? Disney also took top artists who worked in oil paints as a hobby, and they decided to teach the techniques to the artists who mostly worked with watercolors. And Disney thought that the oil technique would work better in Bambi because he wanted to give the forest scenes a lot of depth. And that's the main setting of Bambi. It's a big forest. Another struggle the animators were having, the deers were very hard to draw because deers' eyes, they're on the sides of their heads. They're not in front. And their mouths, they're not made for talking whatsoever. And the deers don't really have a chin. So animator Mark Davis solved this problem by giving the deers human baby traits. Another trouble that the animators were having were drawing Bambi's dad's antlers. They had to be so right that they were having so many problems. So Disney Studios had to make a mold of real antlers, which were filmed at all different angles, and then that footage was put into the movie cells. Disney traveled to Argentina in 1941, where he got inspiration for the forest of Bambi, and it is inspired from the forest of Nequins, and I hope I'm saying that right. That was a province in southwest Argentina. Number 6, Disney had some original movie ideas. One of them was Bambi was supposed to go back after his mom was shot and find her in her pool of blood. I don't like that version whatsoever. That is a lot of trauma you're putting on. Bad enough that Disney had Bambi's mom shot by the hunter, but at least there's the saving grace that Disney didn't actually show Bambi's mom actually being shot. They run, and then you just hear a gunshot, and then you see Bambi entering the den on his own without his mom. You don't actually see Bambi's mom falling down after getting shot. You don't see her dead body whatsoever. This was actually the first Disney parent to actually be killed on screen, technically, in Disney history. Also, another original story idea for the movie was Bambi was supposed to be shot instead of his mom, which doesn't really make sense to me because you shoot the main protagonist and the hero of the movie, that just ends the movie. Also, another idea was the hunter who shot Bambi's mom was going to be a feature character throughout the movie, but Disney didn't want to give kids the bad impression that hunters were evil and this, that, and the other, so he got rid of that idea. Number 7, Bambi was a big box office failure. And it was a failure because it was released during World War II and it lacked access to be released to the European market because of World War II. And it lost money during its first run when it was released into theaters, but it gained back its money about over $2 million during 1947 when the movie was re-released in the theaters. Number 8, Bambi got some award nominations. Bambi got a total of 3 Academy Award nominations. One was for Best Sound, but it lost out to Now Voyager. The second one was for Best Song. Love is a Song. That is a beautiful opening in that movie, and it was beautifully sung by Donald Novis. I hope I'm saying that right. It lost out to Holiday Inn, White Christmas by Mr. Irving Berlin, which is a beautiful song nonetheless. And number 3, it lost the award for Best Original Music Score, and it lost out to Yankee Doodle Dandy. Number 9, studio troubles. Okay, we're gonna get into the serious stuff now. Disney Studios were facing a financial difficulty during the making of Bambi. Disney had to cut 12 minutes from the movie before final animation was put out because it had to save production costs. There was also the studio strike that was happening. I don't know a lot of detail about that. World War II was going on. Disney had to take out another loan from the bank. And Pinocchio and Fantasia were box office failures that everybody was kind of hoping and praying that Bambi would bring them out of the gutters, at least to save the studio. Number 10, the Bambi premiere. Bambi premiered on August 8th, 1942 in London. And because it was such a box office failure, Disney decided to re-release Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs in the summer of 1944. Disney had to kind of think of a way to make some money. Number 11, Bambi animation reused in films. That part is true. The technique is called rotoscoping. It's a technique where animators trace over frames of old footage to use it in a different setting. It was mostly birds and leaves that would be copied in different movies, but now you can see in some of the later movies, you see Bambi's mom in the first shot of Beauty and the Beast, and you see Bambi's mom in the quarry of The Sword and the Stone where Kay's trying to shoot a deer. You can also see Bambi's mom in The Jungle Book with Shere Khan, and you also see Bambi and his mom in The Rescuers. Number 12, the story behind Thumper. Peter Bain got the role of Thumper, and he was 6 years old when he auditioned for the part of one of Mrs. Rabbit's children. And when he said that iconic line that I love, "Did the young prince fall down?" the casting director said, "Get this kid out of here, he can't act." But when the animators heard his voice, they loved it so much that he was called back to the studio to say, "You got it. You're going to be this role. Thumper was created mostly on Peter Bane's vocals, and Thumper was originally going to be called Bobo. And also, Thumper was not in the original story, and Thumper was added to the movie to bring comic relief throughout the story. Number 13, the story of the actor who played Bambi, the younger Bambi. Young Bambi was 6-year-old Donnie Dunnigan, and he also provided the facial expressions for Bambi for animators to copy and then put on paper. Donnie retired from acting literally after Bambi was done, and he grew up and he became a decorated career Marine and youngest drill instructor. He served in the Vietnam War and he was wounded 3 times. He didn't tell any of his recruits or commanding officers that he was Bambi, basically because he didn't want to be teased. And it didn't come up until he was 2 months away from retirement. It happened when he was asked by an officer to do a job for him. And this is a direct quote that I found online. Donnie said, "General, when do you think I'm going to have time to do that?" The general then pulls out a red folder that said top secret. It had Donnie's name on it. The general patted the folder, looks at Donnie directly in the eye, and says, this is a direct quote, "You will audit the auditors, won't you, Major Bambi?" Number 14, where can we find Bambi? Unfortunately, there are no Bambi rides or Bambi restaurants at any of the Disney parks, which is kind of sad, and I think there needs to be at least a Bambi ride somewhere. We do have a Bambi topiary, which is at Epcot at Disney World during the Flower and Garden Festival. And also, if anybody was at Disney World during its 50th anniversary, you would have saw a golden statue of Bambi and Thumper at Animal Kingdom. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment down below. And don't forget to subscribe. And I hope you have a zippity-doo-dah day. Goodbye.